Would you personally rather have regional effects or long life?
Regional effects.
Do you have regional effects in mind that you would have?
Minis everywhere get painted as she walks by.
That would be so convenient. Well, as we own a cleaning company, so I've always thought that like Mary Poppins would be the superhero that I would be. So just
Right.
like if I could just walk like anywhere I go is just clean would be awesome because
Yeah.
it would make my job so much easier.
You go from Cinderella to Mary Poppins.
Yeah, I would because Mary Poppins can, fly with her umbrella. She's got that bag of holding. She can sing and rooms clean. So that's my go-to.
Because it's a Chromatic Dragon episode, I'm going to say long life because I would like to watch my enemies wither and die.
Wow.
It's very.
I'd have to do regional effects. I can't do
Yeah.
long life. I can't. I'm not very good at being alone. So if I know that everybody I know is going to die and I'll forget about them, that won't work for me. So
Well,
regional effects.
My question always is long life. Does that mean that I get to just be like 30 for 70 years? Or am I just a shriveled peanut with arms and legs by the end of it?
Yeah.
I'm not into it if I'm just a peanut.
Like the immortality of a vampire that stays at that age. That's the long life you want.
Well, your nose and ears keep growing, right? So what's that going to look like when you're 800?
The nose and ears keep growing? Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
No, thank you. That always pissed me off about Yoda. He's 900 years old. He's got a tiny little nose.
It's a Mimic, the round table Dungeons & Dragons discussion, where you never know what you're going to get.
Welcome to another episode in our discussion about dragons in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I'm Adam, and with me today are Pepperina and Terry, and this episode is called Chromatic Dragons, More Colorful Details, because we're digging into all of the Fizban's details from the latest book, Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, and they gave us some more details about the chromatics. So we've previously covered all the chromatic and metallic dragons that you can find in the 5th edition monster manual, as well as all sorts of dragon-related creatures and templates. We even spent an episode waxing poetic about what powers and inspirations exist for dragons in previous editions, as well as the named dragons that we could find in 5th edition before Fizban's came out. You can find all these episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and dozens of other podcast apps, or you can jump over to YouTube and dig into the entire playlist on dragons that we've built there. This episode of the It's a Mimic podcast is going to help flesh out further nuance when it comes to using chromatic dragons in D&D 5th edition. This panel of Dungeon Masters is going to rifle through the pages of Fizban's Treasury of Dragons to see what else the 5 main evil dragons have to offer outside of the monster manual. And stay tuned for the end of the episode, where we're going to look into the Chromatic Great Wyrm, which I believe, Terry, is the name of your...
Yeah.
Is it?
Oh, sorry. I agreed to that too soon. Is the name of my what?
No, that's canon now. We've spoken in the past about how the dragons of the monster manual seem to be nothing but big pools of hit points with breath weapons, and the majesty and terror is kind of lacking in 5th edition. While the lore seems flavorful enough, the mechanics don't really back it up. And it's odd that most of the big bad evil guy dragons from the published books all need additional powers to make them scary. Dan has ranted about how dragons should be inherent spellcasters. I've ranted about how they need auras, and I've complained in the past that it's bullshit that chromatics don't get shape-shifting polymorph abilities like their counterparts do. But before we continue with the episode, I want to get this out of the way so we can focus on what the new material gives us and not what's left out. So after doing your research, do you still feel like chromatic dragons are underwhelming?
I got a nat 20 on my app.
Of course you did.
I got 7.
11. All right. Peps, you're up first. Do you feel like chromatic dragons are underwhelming still mechanically?
Well, first of all, I don't know that I've ever thought they were underwhelming because chromatic ones are my favorite.
Okay, fair.
But I understand the wanting more out of the books. I think that they added quite a lot to them with this book. I love all the random tables that you get, so you can make each one of them unique. I know I've said that so many times before, but I think it really adds quite a lot to your dragons in this book.
Yeah, this is giving me more. It's getting me 90% of the way there. I just still miss auras, and I miss fear effects, and I miss, I think some of them have frightful presence, but they should always, like even a wormling, you should be like, oh, fuck. right? Like there should always be that sense of wonder with a dragon. You know, when they see dinosaurs for the first time in Jurassic Park, that's how you should always feel every time you see a dragon. Every time.
Yeah.
And I still don't get that. The DMs just got to do the heavy lifting on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for me, they're the right amount. They are the right amount of whelming. They're not overwhelming, underwhelming. And now that we have some added,
yeah.
Now that we have some added mechanics, right? I think the 5th edition is moving away from things being mechanically heavy, and it's more about things being thematically heavy. And I think the information that we get from Fizban's makes it thematically heavy and inspirational enough that the mechanics that we do have, you can manipulate those in such a way that your encounters with dragons will be very interesting, will be overwhelming.
All right, so here's kind of what we're going to do today. We're going to go through the 5 dragons. We're going to go from lowest to highest in power scale. And we're going to cap off with a Great Wyrm. There are, in Fizban's, the same sections over and over again for every single one of the dragons that are listed there, at least the chromatic ones. You get how to create one, which gives you personality traits and ideals, as well as spell casting options. There's also different adventure hooks that you can get, and then different connections. But you get a D6 table. Actually, it's not always a D6 table. They tend to give you more for adults and fewer for ancients, just because I think more people fight adults, and very, very few get high level enough to fight an ancient dragon. But they do give you these tables to roll on of the different kind of connections that you would have with other kind of monsters and NPCs, depending on how old your dragon is. I would like to say right off the bat, if I have an adult dragon, I'm going to give them 1 or 2 of these, and I'm also going to give them 3 young and 4 wormling, because there should be so many minions. As they get older, they should get more and more and more, not just, oh, he's hanging out with that giant, right? So additionally, on top of that, there's a bunch of new layer stuff, because every one of them has a sample layer with a map laid out in the book. Here's the thing about the layers right off the bat. While they have decent details added, and there's some good inspiration in there, I find that they're small. Did you guys think that when you were looking at them, that like a dragon layer should be bigger?
I guess with one of mine, it was kind of small. I don't know about the other ones so much, but
I'm just comparing it to the layers that we get in Volos, which are just huge labyrinth mazes. Like they're so intricate, and there's all this stuff going on, but I don't even see a place for minions to hang out in most of these, right? Like,
yeah, I feel like what they've covered with the maps here is not necessarily making it absolute with the size. It's more like this is the style of the layer, but you can expand upon this if you want. If it's a network of tunnels or it's vertical shafts or whatever, you can expand upon that. But here's just a small example of the styling.
Yeah, or I would say this is like the main part of the layer, and then as a DM, you can work out from there.
Yeah, for example, with the red dragon, of course, they're in a volcano layer because of course they are. But you have to still get up the freaking mountain, and that's still part of the layer, right? We also get more regional effects for everybody, which is good, as well as a little section on treasures with white dragon art objects for the white dragon. Each one of the dragons gets art objects with a D12 table, which is fun. I like that because it gives you more than just, I don't know, gold and that colored gem, right?
Yeah.
Was there anything you were looking for that you thought was missing from this section?
I don't think so. I think I didn't. Any more for me would be running the risk of like analysis paralysis. There's just too much. But for this is enough where I can draw and focus on 2 or 3 parts of building a dragon and really lean into that instead of having just a little bit of everything you can think of.
I thought it was interesting that we got personality traits and ideals, but not bonds or flaws.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm not missing it. By the time that I've got so much other shit to run for a dragon, I'm not missing it. And I know already off the bat, my guy is going to be egotistical. That's his flaw, or whatever, right?
Arrogant. Or,
Perhaps was anything missing for you?
No, I don't think so. Like I enjoy this book because it gives you the inspiration and not the definite. So if there's anything missing, it sort of leaves that open for you as the DM to create your own.
Yeah.
So this gives you a good, I don't really know where to start with a dragon. This gives you a good point. You can read it, you can be inspired, and then you can add it and grow it. So I don't really want everything laid out as this is what it has to be.
The other thing that they give you in each section is one example famous dragon from D&D lore. We're going to cover them. We did a shit ton of them like a ways back. We're going to hit these ones as well in the future. So we're not going to include them in this episode, but it's really nice to see, okay, this is how they did it for this kind of dragon. So, all right, let's launch into it. And we're going to start off, of course, with the lowest, but still incredibly intimidating white dragon. Now, what we know from the monster manual for white dragons is A, they're white. B, they are hunters primarily in the Arctic setting. They like the cold. They've got ice breath. They do cold damage from their breath weapon. And they're all about brute force and skillful hunting tactics. Now, remember, every dragon is intelligent, but white dragons don't. They've got a different kind of intelligence, the way that dogs have intelligence, where they are essentially an intuitive hunter. They understand their surroundings. They're super alert, but they're not going to get into a philosophical debate with you about shit. White dragons, they didn't go to university. They got street smarts, and there's still going to be an issue, but they're not going to get into a battle of wits with the bard. They're just going to fucking eat them and then say, well, that was too easy. Let me take on the barbarian, because that's the fun challenge. So Fizban gives us a quote at the beginning of every single one of the dragon sections, and this one made me smile a little. He says, "I enjoy an animated debate, just not with a white dragon. Impossible and ignorant, all of them. The air must be different in the Arctic latitudes," which is pretty on brand. So they do give us the creating a dragon section, like I mentioned before, with personality traits and ideals. For the personality traits, the one that stood out to me, again, this is the D8 table, is the one that is the most white dragon-ish. I meet any challenge to my territory with aggression, even if I can't win outright. So I like that idea of the snarling beast. You know how a bear will stand up just to intimidate you? A lot of animals will try to look big. That level of aggression. I feel like the first time that you meet a white dragon, it is on full display.
Yeah.
Especially if it can't defeat you immediately. When it came to the ideals, my favorite one is the one for isolation. All creatures are either prey or rivals. What do you mean by company? And that's an interesting one for white dragons, because as much as they do have connected creatures, they're really solo hunters. Now, the last part of the creating a white dragon section gives us the basic list of spell casting. It's very simplistic, and it gives us young, adult, and ancients all have gust of wind with increasingly difficult DCs, and an ancient dragon has the ability to cast Ice Storm. These are the suggested spells. You do what you need to do. I would not say that this should be the limit, especially for an ancient dragon. It should have more than 2, but it should always include these 2. There are some adventure hooks here. My favorite one out of the list was Aarakocra have become a nuisance in the lowlands ever since they were driven out of their mountain eyrie by the arrival of a white dragon. So you can have a small village out in the middle of the Arctic area that's just being harassed by Aarakocra raiders who are just upset and they want to go home, but they got to live, but they don't have resources. And you think you're going to go fight some Aarakocra, but no, it's a dragon. It's always a dragon. The other thing I should mention is, for the most part, I skipped away from this because it's pretty on the nose. If you know anything about white dragons, there's some giant stuff in here because white dragons and giants tend to go hand in hand. When we get into the connections, there's a D6 table for the wormling, a D6 table for the young, a D8 for the adult, and a D4 for the ancient. So for a wormling, Yetis keep a white dragon wormling chained near the entrance of their lair to discourage scavengers, which I thought would be neat. I also think that can be flipped around, and I mean, when it gets big enough, the Yetis are gonna work for the dragon. It's not gonna put up with this shit forever. And they might be actually the first trophy that they get is the corpses of the Yetis. For a young white dragon, we get a young white dragon has gained control of an invisible stalker and sends it out to steal treasure. I thought that was interesting because it never occurred to me that it would team up with something that isn't directly and obviously ice themed.
Yeah.
It was kind of nice to see that. For the adult, an adult white dragon captured by devils decades ago now serves as a mount for an ice devil, which I thought is pretty fun. If you guys know anything about ice devils, they look like giant kind of praying mantis looking things. So that's a really neat visual for me. I think it's in Icewind Dale. There's a rider on the back of a dragon, an undead corpse that's on the back of a dragon.
Yeah, I've come across that dragon.
And
I was the sole survivor of that encounter.
Were you?
Yeah, I left all my friends to die and ran.
That as you do, yes.
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do. If you are up in the Arctic and you are being attacked by a monster, you shoot a dog, right, Terry? Or you leave your friends to die.
Distraction murder.
Yeah. Normally you'll see a frost giant riding an ancient dragon. I think it's nice to see a ice devil riding an adult white dragon. So, and then for ancient dragons, of course, it gets a little bit more intense. A community of orcs believe an ancient white dragon to be the reincarnation of a legendary leader. They've been venerating the dragon so long that the dragon now believes the story and speaks proudly in orc about the orc's triumph. So, I do like fighting hordes and armies of big, powerful creatures, so that's fun. I really like the artwork for the white dragon in this one. They seems scary in a way that the one in the monster manual just seems like he's going out for a stroll.
Right.
In the lair, they give us a bunch of different things, but essentially it is a frozen stream. They give us a bunch of little smaller rooms, including, the cave entrance, a little dining hall area where it eats its meals before it moves in, and it's just like stinks in there. There's a rocky grotto, a low cavern where it used to have its lair when it was a wormling, and then it moved up into a higher position, which is the upper cavern. And then that says the lower cavern might have minions in it. I would definitely put minions there. But you get a couple of additional lair actions, including Blinding Sleet, which is just a shit ton of snow and sleet, which could blind you if you don't make a con save, or Whirling Wind, which there's actually rules in the DMG for how to deal with strong wind conditions, and it just points you in that direction. So the regional effects that you get are Biting Chill, which is when everybody within 6 miles and anybody that does not have immunity or resistance to cold damage is going to get disadvantage on strength and dex because you are so cold. Then the other one, of course, is Mirror Ice, which is the lair reflect light like mirrors, giving creatures in the lair other than the dragon disadvantage on stealth checks made to hide. So there's just a lot of fun, like funhouse mirror crap going on there. When it comes to dragon treasures, white dragons tend to like, white gems, because of course they do, but they're really more interested. They'll take silver and gold, but they'll bury it. What they want to do is have all of the precious gems that sparkle so that when you cast light, it looks like there's almost a starry sky in every surface that embedded in the ice walls. They do take a lot of trophies, but they're most proud of the biggest ones and the most difficult to get, even if they're garbage trophies. If they had real issue hunting down and fighting a displacer beast that just kept moving and moving and moving, that skull, even though it's just a displacer beast, might have a better place of honor in and among its horde than anything else will. And remember, they tend to display this stuff by freezing it up against the walls or into like ice pillars and things like that. So it's not just like when you think trophies, it's not mounted nicely above a fireplace. It's like built into the lair. Now they do give you this D12 art objects list, which I thought was a lot of fun. But as I was going through it, I don't know, here's one. A wooden throne heaped with furs. Any visitors must sit on the throne while the dragon recounts the grisly death of the seat's previous owner. So that's fun. Some of these are neat and flavorful. I'm not sure a white dragon is going to get into a whole lot of story
Conversation.
Also interesting that a creature that wants supremacy would allow would insist that another creature sits on their throne as well.
I really, if I'm leaning into the evil of it, I like the idea of them not telling the owner of the throne, the last person to sit here had this history. What's your story? Tell me now so I can tell the next person that sits here after you.
Yeah.
That's
I
good.
do like the as a hunter and growing up around a lot of hunters, we always have a story. There's always this big hunt, and it gets more and more elaborate every time you tell it. So I do like the idea of white dragons being so like they're hunters. That's what they do, and having to tell their hunting story. To like, if you show up at my cave, I'm going to tell you the story of how I defeated this beast.
So anybody listening, Pepperina here has just claimed to have killed a 28-point buck and a dire bear.
Yes.
With one arrow. So that's kind of what we're given for white dragons. Let's grab dice. I've got a couple of questions.
Sure.
Okay.
We rolling?
Oh.
8.
3.
I'm gonna roll this rock so it sounds like I'm making a noise, but 15.
You could have done that the whole time.
The whole time.
I've been doing that for 3 years.
3 years.
What
He's just making up numbers, whether he wants to go first or not.
We just add the dice rolls in post. So, Peps, what is your favorite piece of new inspiration about white dragons?
I like all the creature connections, and just I feel like a lot of times when you're in a dragon campaign, like there's the dragon and that's it. I like the idea of other creatures being involved with it, and it adds more to the story. It adds more clues for your players to try and figure out, and just more flavor and more things.
Terry?
I was going to say the same, so I won't. I love the maps. I love the expansion upon the maps, because then you can tie it to the dragon's personality and their standard tactics, and now you can really come up with creative combat encounters. When I see that frozen stream with all of the smaller rooms along there, my mind instantly went, oh, the objective here is not to kill the dragon, but is probably to retrieve something from inside. And this looks like a perfect kind of chase scene as you're like, as the dragon kind of moves between these smaller rooms and you're trying to make your way along this frozen river. It looks like you're going to be running the gauntlet. So the maps for me really inspired me for the combat encounters.
The thing that I really liked the most was the layer actions. And that's going to be standard, I think, across the board for me. I like getting the 3 layer actions. I would only ever have 3, but I would select, depending on the party and depending on the dragon, which 3 I'm going to use out of now a list of 5. And same thing for regional effects. Having more options is going to make different dragons feel unique in different ways without me having to just come up with shit on the fly, which is nice. Are these the right spells? Gust of Wind and Ice Storm? Peps? Are we missing one?
Yeah,
here?
I mean, it makes sense.
Is there something else that you would add to the list?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, any ice spell is gonna work, I think there was a new like snowball one that would be fun to throw in there.
Yeah, the snowball was fun. Yeah, I think the problem, well, Terry, you go.
I think the spells fit. They're very combat kind of related spells, or that's how I would sort of use them. Makes sense as a hunter. It's about manipulating the position of the enemy. I mean, I think there's an argument you could have like control weather and maybe just limit it around the dragon's personalities, like special conditions. But I think those two are pretty good.
Yeah, I think the problem here is that there's not a whole lot of ice spells that exist out there, and things like Ray of Frost and Cone of Cold and that kind of shit. You already have a breath weapon.
Yeah, you have a breath weapon. Yeah.
So you don't need that shit. So yeah, I'm fine with this. This is good. I have no problem with that. Maybe some sort of intimidate or charm thing, but now I'm making spells and I don't need to do that. So
yeah.
You know what? It's the hunter thing. They should have Hunter's Mark.
Hunter's Mark. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that'd be great.
So how do you feel about the new layer details and regional effects? Peps?
I'm a big fan of regional effects in general. I think they add a lot of fun to any dragon, really. So yeah, I like any new layer effects, any new regional effects. I think they only really add more to it.
Did you like these ones? Because there's no damage being done in any of them. They're all environmental based.
I think that's pretty common with regional effects. They're all
with regional effects, yes, but
the layer
effects some of them tend to be damaged. We didn't get any damage ones from dragons.
You can always you can always add damage onto them if you want to, or you could just, I love just the chaos of things too, that don't add damage, but just add chaos to the fight and keep your party guessing.
I love them because they didn't have damage, those lair actions. I think when you have such an established hunter as a white dragon, they have their methodology of how they are going to kill you. This is all about where they're going to position you or how they're going to stop you from doing what you want to do so that they can set their perfect trap. So I like that it's not damage related.
Yeah, my favorite thing about this is the whirling wind, right? Which is all about these like strong wind conditions. And it says right here, the dragon's flying is not affected by the wind. So everybody else is getting just beat to shit by this, but not the dragon, which feels magical and interesting and makes dragons seem scarier still. So yeah, I love these. This is fantastic. What do we have next? We have black dragons.
That's me. Black dragons are one of my favorite dragons. No fucks given. They are a dragon. They're going to do what they want. They're going to take pleasure in it. They're definitely, I would say, the most sadistic of the dragons. They're not the most powerful, but they don't really care because they're going to eat you anyways. So the Fizban's quote here is, Tiamat spent the most time crafting her black dragon. I was flabbergasted at her final product and suggested so many adjustments. But at some point, a project is simply due.
Fair one.
So for the D8 table of dragon traits we got, I picked 2 of them. Watching the works of lesser beings crumble and fall into ruins fills me with joy. And nothing lasts forever, but I promise to outlast you. And I think these both really speak to the just sadistic nature of the black dragon. And, you know, they don't really care, but they're gonna have joy in just watching you fall. For the black dragon idea, we get a D6 table. I only picked one of those. Possessing what others covet is immensely satisfying. So they don't necessarily want the thing, but you want the thing, so they're going to take it and just get pleasure out of that. For the spells, we get, for young, they get blindness, deafness, and create destroy water. At adult, they gain plant growth, and at ancient, they get insect plague. I get a lot of like evil druid vibes off of these spells, for sure. They're like, the more I read into this, the more I was like, black dragons are really just an evil spore druid.
It's cool that they didn't go darkness. They went blindness, deafness.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That seems more sadistic.
Yeah.
And changing the environment. Yeah.
Fuck you specifically.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck you specifically.
I like the plant growth. I like the insect plague. That fits in quite well, as I'll get into their layer actions and things like that. I think it all really lines up pretty well. What do you think about create destroy water? Do you think that fits?
Thematically, they should have that because they lived in despoiled areas that are rotting and noxious and shit. So yes, but is it ever going to come up? No.
Yeah. No, I don't view this as create clean drinkable water. This is create the stankiest, most awful water ever.
Are lungs an open container?
Oh, not anymore. Not anymore.
It is for them. For the Black Dragon Adventure Hooks, we get a D8 table, and I have a black dragon recently took control of a band of pirates and their backwater hideout. Emboldened, the pirates have started raiding nearby shipping lanes. I like this. Everyone likes a pirate campaign. Everyone likes a dragon campaign. This is a good way to mix the two. And I think they're both gritty enough to work well together.
You've got to be polymorphing that black dragon into some sort of sexy goth pirate captain. There's no other way.
There's no other
way. You
way.
did not specify male or female, so I'm just like picturing like Big Daddy Pirate.
I
was picturing Big Daddy Pirate too.
Really? I like female dragons. I don't know, maybe it's I like powerful female lizards.
Stay tuned after the end credits where we actually unpack that shit and dig into Terry's inner turmoils. So
These really just become therapy sessions, digging into Terry and I's like deep-seated issues.
I feel like I just dig deeper into the abysses and come out of these.
It really explains quite a lot about our personalities. For connected creatures, for the wormlings, we get a D6 table. A gnome relic hunter looting a long abandoned city strikes up an unlikely partnership with a black dragon wormling to plunder an archaeological dig. This has like gnome Indiana Jones vibes meets black dragon baby, and I love anything gnome. You guys know that.
I also like the idea of a gnome riding a wormling. That's
for young, we get another D6 table. A young black dragon with a talent for alchemy has weaponized the spores of a myconid colony. This again feeds into the black dragons or evil druids vibe that I got from them. But I mean, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they weaponize the spores?
This is sadistic, because this is like biological warfare now. Like this is really sadistic. If you have these spores popping up, and in the farms and the towns and stuff.
But spores are already weaponized. If you get infected by the spores, you become essentially a zombie servant to the myconids. Like I was like, watch out for the black spores. They do extra shit beyond that. The regular like beige ones are bad enough. But now there's going to be red ones and green ones and black ones and just a black dragon just giggling in the background.
For adult, we get a D8 table. An adult black dragon has hidden a cache of gems in a dismal topiary maze filled with shambling mounds, traps, and noxious plant life, all for the amusement of testing adventurers. Again, you're there for their amusement. Whether you die, whether you live, they're probably going to hope you die, but they're just going to watch and enjoy. This one is probably for the ancient, which is a D4 table, is like the scariest one I think I've read out of any of these. An Illithid community has spent nearly a millennium raising and preparing a black dragon to become an elder brain dragon. So the elder brain can wreak ruin upon its rivals.
The elder brain dragons are fucking terrifying. We'll get into those in another episode. I just love the idea of like the black dragon is on board for this shit too. Raised to believe one day I will ascend, right? Like that's fucked up.
That's terrifying. That's a terrifying campaign to be thrown into. For the black dragon layers, black dragons are typically found in swamps and jungles and prefer to find ruins in these areas to build their layers in. So they give us a map of the ruins of an old chapel. The wood clearly rotted away years ago, leaving one lone tower. Next to the tower is a swampy lake where the dragon sleeps. The swamp is filled with the smell of dead fish and rot and is surrounded by dense plants and trees. This is where that like plant growth comes in to play. As part of the dragon's corrupt influence, a thick fog covers the air. The chapel floor is exposed with cold stone columns jutting out. Going into the main hall, you see 2 staircases leading into a partially flooded crypt. 5 sarcophagi raised above the waterline with carvings of what look like warriors, but has been so corroded by acid that you can't make out who they were. Each hold what looks like treasure, but these sarcophagi are traps. There is a fully submerged tunnel that leads to the lake where the dragon sleeps. So this is an easy way for the dragon to sort of get in and out without being seen.
Yeah, black dragons have swim speeds, right? So that makes sense.
At the end of the chapel floor, you see a still standing tower. Opening the large oak door, you see the tower is completely empty except for a staircase that ends mid-air before reaching the 3rd level. The dragon keeps its hoard at the top of the crumbling tower where it can perch and stare into the gloom. Those who can't fly must try to climb the walls covered with slimes and traps in hopes of claiming the treasure. Now, even if you can fly, if you're that one party member that can fly and you're just like, I'm going to fly to the top of this tower, then you have a dragon up there by yourself
That's always a trap.
without your party. Yeah.
You are splitting the party. Good luck there.
So even if I could, I don't know that I would.
Never my sex tape.
Even if I could. Oh.
We get 3 additional layer actions. Filth Burst, which is the dragon chooses a point on the ground it can see within 120 feet, a 20-foot radius, 20-foot high cylinder of watery filth centered on that point erupts from the ground until initiative count 20 on the next round. Each creature in the cylinder, when it appears or that ends its turn, must make a DC 15 Constitution saving throw or take 3d6 poison damage, or half as much if they succeed. And the cylinder is difficult terrain. Then we have Grasping Muck. Tendrils of roiling muck extend from the dragon's lair to grasp up to 3 creatures of the dragon's choice that it can see within the lair. A targeted creature must succeed a DC 15 strength saving throw or be restrained. And then Noxious Gas, a bubble of swamp gas erupts in a 20-foot radius sphere centered on the point the dragon can see within the lair. Each creature in the area must succeed a DC 15 Constitution saving throw or be poisoned for 1 minute. So those are, unlike the other one, those all do damage. Or no, one's restrained and the other.
Yeah, they're nasty.
Yeah. So the one gives you poison, the one gives you damage, and the one restrains you. So it really gives you a full array of choices there, depending on what you need. For regional effects, I don't know how to say this word.
It is my favorite one. This is my one. It is ennui.
Ennui. I would have said it not like that. Creatures that spend a year within 10 miles of the dragon's lair are filled with listless despair. Then we have Grating Spies. Trilling, obnoxious birds, bugs, and reptiles follow any humanoid creature unknown to the dragon within 6 miles of the lair, imposing disadvantage on stealth checks. And the dragon can suppress that at will. And then Rotting Domain. Stinging bugs are aggressive, and the air is heavy with the odor of rot for 6 miles of the lair. You don't want to live anywhere near a black dragon lair with these regional effects. Like, that's what I've learned. You don't, any other dragon, like, they're livable. Some of them are just a little quirky. These, you don't want to be near that.
You are never going to sneak up on a black dragon with those spies following you everywhere.
Yeah.
With those stinging bugs that are aggressive, like, good luck getting a good night's sleep the night before, when you plan to go in the next morning, as everyone does, and kill this dragon, because you may have some people coming out with exhaustion here if they can't give a legitimate method of escaping these bugs in the night.
I do love me some exhaustion.
And then we have the treasure for the black dragons. They prefer objects of culture, magical, or scientific significance. Gems, opals, metals, or precious metals that don't corrode easily in stone sculptures. I've picked out 2 of the list given. Lavishly illustrated genealogy kept in a magically sealed container that disputes a current monarch's right to the throne. I think that one can add a lot to, like, a hook. And it's not just a piece of art, but it's now a piece that somebody is hiring you to go get this, because I don't want it known that I'm not rightfully, the right person for this throne. And then I have a beautifully enameled urn holding the desiccated heart of the dragon's former green dragon rival. I imagine that's like on a stand in the middle. See that guy? Yeah, I killed him. That's what's going to happen to you.
That's loads of fun. And I like the fact that at any point he could just, like, eat the heart, but he chooses not to. So, what's your favorite piece of new inspiration about these dragons? Let's roll for it.
11.
I got a 2.
12.
Of course you did. Peps, you're up first. What's your favorite piece of inspiration?
I like that they really lean into the environment and the swamp and the bugs and the overgrowth of plant life and that. I think you can do a lot with all of that stuff before you even get to the dragon. That's really gonna just throw a wrench in whatever your party has planned.
Terry?
I am really loving the dragon connections because I think it's hard to connect these creatures with other creatures outside of, minions. But, often you'll have like the dragon campaign, the giant campaign, but this kind of exposes that whole web of how everything is connected. Sometimes there's mutual enemies or there's mutual goals. There's a lot of intrigue. And this is just examples that spark inspiration of how you can connect different creatures together. I think it's done really well.
I gotta say, the thing that stood out for me was the idea that a dragon has dead dragons on display as trophies. Like, we talk about them fighting, we talk about trophies, but I never made that connection before. So I don't know, that stuck out for me. Are these the right spells for the dragons?
I really like these spells for this dragon. I think they fit in very well. I mean, the create, destroy, water, like you said, I don't know that it's ever really going to come up.
Oh, I would use it a lot.
Yeah.
To manipulate the environment.
I would also use it to, like, these guys have been walking through this area for how long with like toxic water? They must be running low. I can offer it to you, but you got to do shit for me.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. I love it again that they're not damage related. It's they're purely sadistic. The blindness, deafness is the best example of that. Create, destroy, water. You can get creative with it, but like the insect plague, it's all about just making you feel uncomfortable, making your time in this region just completely miserable.
And even like with the plant growth, as I play a couple of druids, and usually that's I'm going to regrow this forest and it's going to be beautiful and lush and bring life back. They're using it in a completely different way, not necessarily to bring life and beauty, but just to fuck up your day and make it harder for you to get to them. And they're not pretty plants that they're growing.
Yeah, I gotta say, the one thing that's missing for me off this list is Stinking Cloud. And that one does do damage, but I feel like that just makes sense in this environment. Peps, how do you feel about the new layer details and regional effects?
I think they fit very well. I like the, bugs and birds sort of spies that you're not going to sneak up on them. And you're not even going to realize they're spy. Like, nobody's going to think a mosquito following them around is a spy. It's just a pest that, you're not going to necessarily hide talking about your plan when there's bugs flying around you and think anything of it.
Terry?
I love the layer actions because they're very difficult to prepare for. Some of the more traditional ones that we see where it's like building walls and stuff. Okay, we know we have PCs with high movement will maybe get around. This is stuff that's harder to prepare for, the radius things and the con saves. How it's going to affect your movement. It's a lot of unknowns where you can't really have a perfect plan for taking on one of these dragons. It's going to be, a lot of changing decisions. You better just hope that everybody on the team has enough critical thinking where they can still execute their plan while everyone else's is failing.
I gotta say, I think my favorite detail about this is the fact that they officially said half of this layer is above water, half of it's underwater.
Yeah.
And when you combine that with plant growth, making your PCs swim and then growing the seaweed around them is so much scarier. So I'm you know what? Entangle should be on the list too.
Yeah, definitely.
I know we mention it in just about every episode that we've got a subreddit, r/itsAmimic, but I wanted to point you guys directly there because that's where I keep the episode guide updated every week. Also, we have a post there that's sticky at the top, which is there for mailbag questions, and we refresh that on a regular basis. I know that I'm in there as often as I possibly can, updating the lists so that we're ready to go the next time that a mailbag episode comes around. And everyone except Terry is lurking around on there. It doesn't feel like it, but I damn well know for a fact, because they mention it to me, that Jeff and Dan and Dave and James and Kyle, like, we're all lurking around waiting for someone to post something and feeling, I don't know, weirdly awkward. I guess they feel awkward. Anyway, feel free to talk to the people directly. You don't have to just kind of post an official question. If you want to call somebody out for something funny they said or something they got wrong on an episode, that's really the place to do it. You can send interesting links to D&D related nonsense that you found online, or just come in with a cool story about something that happened in your campaign. It's really the best way to get a hold of us for just kind of shooting the shit when it's not an official question, or a request, or a shout out. And of course, you could just shit talk Terry behind his back because he's the only one that's not on there and he's not going to check it. It's r/it'samimic on Reddit. You're invited to come hang out at your leisure. Let's get back to the episode.
Okay, so I'll go over green dragons, and green dragons, as we remember, are the schemers of the Chromatic Dragons, not necessarily sadistic, but certainly scheming, a lot of intrigue, backstabbing, manipulation. This is green dragons, typically in forested areas. Fizban says, in some ways, the green dragons are the most dragon of the dragons. Pity that Tiamat gets credit for them. Sure.
Well, if you remember, Fizban is also kind of Bahamut, who also created dragons, and apparently they all worked together to make dragons. And so I guess what he's saying is he did a lot of this, but yeah, whatever. We'll give her the credit for this.
But Tiamat's getting the credit, yeah, because it's the Chromatic Dragon, yeah. So with these scheming green dragons, then, of course, they'll have their own personality traits. A couple that stuck out for me are, I allow others to dwell in my forest if they act as my eyes, ears, and occasional playthings in return. Touches a little bit on the sadistic side, but certainly scheming as well. The second one being, I hate how much people think they matter in a world that was old before their kind even learned the idea of names. I, in a way, would certainly agree to that. You know, I think as humans, we get a lot of these kind of, there's like first world problems, but then there's also human problems, which in the grand scheme of things are not really a big deal. It's maybe just been a big deal in the past 50 years. That's it. For a couple of the green dragon ideals, then, the idea of control. So all lesser creatures should bare their throats to their betters. Sure. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think you would want to be challenged by creatures that you consider to be lesser than you. And the idea of intrigue. The world is so much more entertaining when no one trusts anyone. This is really what I like about green dragons as well. It's just making so that it's not necessarily one side or the other is winning, but nobody trusts anyone. Nobody has a clue what's going on, and nobody knows what to believe. I think these days we can kind of draw parallels from this, and that is very green dragon, very green dragon-like. So for their spell casting, they get invisibility, speak with animals. As they move to the adult age, they get plant growth. And as they move into the ancient dragon stage, they add mass suggestion as well. For green dragon adventure hooks, the two that stuck out to me is a cult is preparing travelers to feed a newly hatched pair of green dragons. And a green dragon stalks a well-known trade route, interrogating passers-by for information on a dead gold dragon's lost hoard. I love that because it's this idea of, you know, every dragon has a different objective, right? They're looking for something different. And just because a dragon has come across you doesn't necessarily mean that you're the most important part of their day. They're just the most important part of your day. So it's like, hey, yeah, I know I could kill you. I'm not interested in that right now. Lucky you. I just need information on this thing. And hopefully you can provide it. Otherwise, they may be getting frustrated with you. For some connected creatures, then, a couple that stuck out for me here. For the adult green dragon, giant apes raised by the green dragon now serve as the dragon's hunting party. I love this because this is how you connect different creatures, and I think this is phenomenal. I got some Wizard of Oz vibe from this as well. This is just amazing. And an ancient green dragon is the guardian of a lich's phylact tree and extorts favors from the lich to keep it. This is fantastic as well, because this is two hugely powerful creatures that are benefiting from each other. And of course, there's going to be some intrigue and some backstabbing here. It also means that you can use an example like this to put a green dragon into your campaign, even though the campaign does not necessarily revolve around that dragon. You still get an ancient dragon in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to the layers, then, what's interesting about green dragon layers is they're often constructed from hollowed out great trees that will create vertical shafts down to different levels of tunnels. And there'll always be the situation where you can never get from top to bottom on a single shaft from a single tree. So you have this kind of multi-level, almost like the old sort of 2D video game platform games, this kind of multi-level map where there may be times where you have to go, in order to get out of the lair, you may have to go deeper into the lair, kind of down the stairs and then back up the stairs. These would be constructed around jungles, bayous, pine forests, and basically anywhere where there's abundant vegetation. And the Horde chamber will have multiple entrances to the Horde chamber, and it may be one way sometimes. Like you get to the end of the tunnel and then there's a steep cliff, for example, and there's the Horde chamber, which can make it very difficult to escape. This is all part of the scheming side for me. It's just a constant puzzle. There's multiple ways in, multiple ways out, but they're not necessarily all accessible at once. And so when it comes to some layer features, then things to consider, you would have to consider the canopy of the vegetation that's around, what's underground, how the Horde chamber is situated in comparison to the tunnels and the vertical shafts, and also that there would be a lashing root in there as well. So for the for the two layer actions that they have, lashing root is the first one I want to touch on, and then the creeper vines. So for the lashing root, this is essentially one large root or branch that is part of the lair, will make a melee attack against a creature within 10 feet of it, and that creature will get 3d6 bludgeoning damage on a hit. If the target is medium or it's smaller than medium, it must succeed on a DC 15 strength saving throw, or it will be knocked prone. For the creeper vines, the dragon can use the vines and roots within the lair to animate up to 3 humanoid corpses, and they will become zombies as per zombies in the monster manual, and they will take their turn immediately after this lair action. And each one will revert to an inanimate corpse after 1 minute, or when the dragon uses their lair action again, or when that zombie is destroyed.
Well then,
indeed. For the regional effects that we'll see, there's inviting whispers. So whispers rustle in the foliage within 1 mile of the dragon's lair. The words are indistinct, as in you can't make out what they're saying necessarily, but a creature with an intelligence score of 5 or higher interprets them as an invitation to move deeper into the greenery. You will also get twisted messengers. The dragon can cause any tiny beast within 1 mile of its lair action to act as a mouthpiece. So this effect is particularly horrendous, as the creature's throat and mouth will temporarily warp into a twisted version of the dragon's own in order to deliver this message. And I love this because I imagine this to be incredibly painful for that creature. Their bones will start popping, their structure will change, and they're only tiny little bird or something to make this happen. And, you know, I say in the style of the Green Goblin, first we attack their hearts. Go after their pets with this is my thing. And go after their pets and do this to their pets, and this will get them riled up. And when PCs or players get riled up and agitated, they don't think properly, they blame each other, the whole thing falls apart, and you've executed a green dragon tremendously. Okay, so for the treasures of the green dragon then, what I like about the treasures of the green dragons, it's essentially taking something beautiful and pure and maybe even angelic and just kind of twisting it into something poisonous. So 2 examples being the polished skull of a unicorn, which is latticed with luminescent blooms. So you've kind of taken something kind of innocent and divine and twisted it, or a stained glass window set within a fragment of wall depicting the many deaths of an elf monarch.
Yeah, I feel like they hate elves.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like they would hate elves. Well, elves are long-lived and you know, they're associated with wisdom and intelligence, and you know, the counterpart of that is a scheming, I guess. So it makes sense. But that's it. That's it for green dragons. That's everything I have.
All right, so let's roll initiative.
Sure. 11.
12.
7.
Hey, I get to go first. So my favorite piece of new inspiration about these guys is I love their speak with animals shit. That is just the ability to speak through them and then cast speak with animals really feels good. As a green dragon, as a mastermind, as the little finger of dragons, that feels right. Although I guess it was Varys who had all the little birds. Doesn't matter. This feels good for green dragons.
I love the fact that every part of this dragon is just poison. All of it, like you know, technical poison or just thematically poisonous. Everything is just a twisted game. It is about using you against each other, about warping your perceptions, making you question yourself. It's just gaslighting on a large scale. And that's what I love about this dragon, is you'll just never be totally sure in yourself and your decisions.
Yeah, I think with green dragons, it's sort of, you never know if they're going to show up and eat you or if they're just going to toy with you. Like, it really just depends on on the day for that dragon. Like the one suggestion about they're just looking for information on the gold dragon's hoard. Like they show up, you're like, I don't know if this dragon's gonna eat me or if it just needs information. And it could go either way, or it could just get the information and then eat you.
I like the idea of it. Like, I'm not going to kill you. You tell me what I want to know, and I'm just going to let you go. By the way, I'm taking your horse as a snack on the way.
Mm-hmm.
Are these the right spells for this dragon? I like them. Again, entangle fits, but like, I like it. Yeah. Dissonant whispers, I feel, is missing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Jared?
that's a good one.
I like them too. I think invisibility makes sense, but probably not for a combat purpose. You could use it as a combat purpose, but this is more like information gathering and kind of just an extension of your stealth. Speak with animals, of course. Plant growth, yeah, absolutely. Mass suggestion, I love. It's all about manipulation. I would really lean into that one. But yeah, I think the spells are great.
They say elsewhere in the book that you can add polymorph as you see fit. And of course, green dragons would benefit from that more than anyone else. So,
yeah.
Peps?
I think mass suggestion's probably my favorite one there for them. I could see them using that quite a lot to just either get information or just entertain themselves if they just want to be entertained that day.
We're getting a lot of stuff like, oh, these things are my little playthings. And like, we're getting that from dragons, which is, of course, how they would see the world. But what do they do when they play? It can't be good.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's making people cry because they're bored, right? And it's, the green dragon's just going to get bored on a random Sunday and be like, hey, you know what? We're going to use all of my shit to get these two people to get a divorce just cuz.
Yeah.
Just cuz.
I see it a little bit differently with green dragons. With black dragons, I see it as the PCs are the dragon's toys. With the green dragons, you're the green dragon's tools. You're not the Friday night plaything. You're the Tuesday afternoon visit to the bank. Like, I've still got to get that done. I need to use you. Hey, lucky you're not going to die today. However, you are a tool that I need to use to get what I really want.
I just wonder what do they, I mean, we know what they want. They want power and whatnot. Once they get it, though, what do? When a green dragon rules the land, how are they fucking with people?
Yeah.
So that actually, like, what was Jafar's end game? Become Sultan, then what?
Even towards the end, he was kind of just felt like he was making it up as he went along.
Right? Like, here, now you're wearing sexy red clothes.
Yeah.
Fuck. Okay. Way to go, Jafar. You're really helping us out here.
I think that helped out a lot of boys.
I don't think it helped me out. I think it made everything worse. I think I blame Jafar for the start of all of this.
When it comes to the layer details and the regional effects, I really like this stuff. I'm enjoying the fact that we're getting such unique layer effects that are getting added. I really wish that we got 3 for the white dragons. Everybody else is getting 3. They only got 2.
Right.
But man, those creeper vines. The creeper vines are fun. Just here we go. Have a zombie. I love the idea.
Yeah, I like them because it feels like they're just designed to just exhaust you. Like, even trying to get to a green dragon should just be exhausting. You should, as soon as you think you've got it figured out, you haven't got it figured out. That was all part of the chess game. And, just to even try and get to them, your party should be bickering amongst each other by the time they get there. Like, an NPC is just, I don't know, died because of something, or like, the whole thing should be falling apart before you can even see the dragon.
Peps, any thoughts?
And like adding on to that, you can't even trust the like pets and familiars in the party anymore because they've sent you a message through them and like, is this thing a spy? Did you bring a spy? We need to kill it.
Yeah. And even, the party may not even be aware that it's the dragon speaking through the pet at first. Obviously, when their face starts to crack and break and stuff, maybe. But, you could even just use that against them. You could just have the pet tell the owner that they don't like them anymore and they don't want to be with them. They think they're useless and they'll never succeed in anything, and then just leave and then just go off to do the green dragon's bidding somewhere else. That would break them.
That would break a lot of hearts.
So, speaking of heartbreakers, blue dragons.
For blue dragons, I feel like they're more going to use what they can. Like, especially with the spells that you get, like they're tricky in a way that's different than green dragons. They're not tricky to be tricky. They're tricky in more of a tactical way.
They're just expert strategists.
Yes, they are very tactical. They are going to get into your head to get what they want, not necessarily to fuck with you, but just to get what they want out of you. And they're going to collect the best. They're going to do what they need to do to reach where they feel that they should be. And then the quote we get from Fizban is, "If I weren't so platinum, I'd be blue. Not as in sad or down, quite the opposite. I'd be delighted to be a blue dragon if I weren't a platinum one."
That's a little dark for Fizban, isn't it? That's not good. That's not good.
So for the blue dragon traits, we get a D8 table. I picked 2 of them. I would rather destroy my lair and lose my hoard than allow anyone to steal from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really speaks to they are going to be the best. You're not going to steal from them. You're not taking anything from them. I will burn this place to the ground before I allow that to happen. And I'm so pleased with myself and my own good fortune that I can't stop laughing or chuckling. Like they're just cocky son of a bitches, really. They just believe that they are the best at everything that they do.
Yeah, that one surprises me. I never kind of took them as being like cocky, definitely like brilliant and like strategic, but never kind of viewed them as cocky like that. But I guess it kind of works.
For the blue dragon ideals, you get a D6 table, and I have lesser beings exist to be my playthings, and I excel at finding ways to toy with them. So again, they're the best. They don't care if they see you as lesser, like you just exist to help them or entertain them or whatever they choose that day. And then for the spells, we get at young, create, destroy water, and major image. At adult, we get arcane eye, and at ancient, we get project image. So again, another create, destroy water, which I thought was interesting.
I love it.
Yeah, we're dealing with deserts now, right?
Yeah, it definitely fits with it. Like if any of them need to create, destroy water, it's the blue dragon.
It's the destroy water part for
Mhm.
me. I'm destroying all of the water in your water skins, and you're gonna have to walk this desert for 3 days before you even begin to find me.
I also like that the major image and project image are, that's mirages in the desert, right? Like that can be fun.
Yeah. They're very sort of manipulative, I think, spells that they can use to get what they want or get you to go where they want.
Yeah.
For adventure hooks, we have a D8 table. A blue dragon recently acquired trunks full of dress clothes and costumes, and it's abducting people to put on a fashion show. That one, can you imagine if you're on like hunting a blue dragon, or you go into a town and they're like, people are missing, we need you to figure it out. And you get to a blue dragon's lair, expecting them to be in cages or like working, digging out things or dead. And they're strutting down a fashion like runway, putting with all these elaborate clothes on. And the dragon's just like, very nice, very nice.
I feel like the barbarian in the party is going to flip shit.
Yeah. Like that just made me laugh so much. For connected creatures, for the wyrmling, a recently hatched brood of blue dragon wyrmlings has adopted a wounded pseudo dragon as a sibling. For the young, a tough but fair young blue dragon leads a fantastically loyal mercenary squad. For the adult dragon, an adult blue dragon plans to present a loyal bandit clan to a bronze dragon as a courting gift. I like that one. It's sort of the first time we get the idea of dragons courting each other, and a chromatic trying to court a metallic.
I like
what
this.
that would look like.
Particularly a bronze in this case, where the blue dragon and the bronze dragon will likely respect similar things. They have a similar kind of way that they operate. And the fact that it's deliberately a loyal bandit clan would be useful to a bronze dragon or a blue dragon, and it speaks to things that they both admire.
Yeah, for those of you that don't remember, those are the two war fairy dragons more than anything else. Yeah. So
And then for ancient, an ancient blue dragon without offspring has adopted wormlings of various colors, including a number stolen from the wormlings' parents. So then, like, the ancient dragon's getting up there and it doesn't have any descendants. And it's like, I think it's time to start a family, but I'm going to just steal them.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even the other dragons are hiring you to get their babies back. And that's a whole, like, mission for your party there. Okay, for the blue dragon layers, they are typically found in deserts and they prefer warm climate. However, if a potential layer happens to be in a colder climate, they will adapt. They are usually underground and have intricate tunnels. The dragons burrow out to have plenty of room for a growing family, which I have, and a lot of it has to do with family and courting, and I found that a lot in the inspiration here, that blue dragons seem to be more family-oriented than other dragons. They do appreciate the tactical advantage of height, so will likely have a tall spire or cliff nearby they can keep watch from. Most would be considered rather homey with a balance of beauty and comfort.
It's interesting that they're going to be, occasionally in the cold climates as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it does make sense. The largest desert in the world is in Antarctica, right? So it doesn't necessarily specify hot desert, just desert.
Mm-hmm. And then we're given a map of an ancient city that has sunken into the sand. The dragon has formed crystallized glass walls with its lightning breath as a system.
Sorry, it's
of
lightning what?
It's
Oh,
lightning. It's lightning
breast.
breath.
Oh.
Where was I at?
Derailed. Lovely.
This is exactly like when the word erect came up in the last recording.
Dave said it so nonchalantly.
We immediately stopped. Okay. Lightning breath and has a system of mirrors set up to bring light throughout. I really like that using their breath weapon to create like glass walls and stuff throughout their layer. I think that adds just more that you can do with it. It doesn't just have to be for damage.
You guys ever seen Sweet Home Alabama?
Yes.
Of course you have, Pepperina. This reminds me of Sweet Home Alabama with the lightning.
The lightning rods. Yeah.
I would have these little ornaments around.
That's the one movie Terry's seen.
Movie.
Sweet Home Alabama.
I love that movie.
The entrance chamber has glass walls 30 feet tall with stone pillars left from the city that once was. To the left, it has a hoard display room a bit smaller than the entrance. The walls are covered with blue gems that allows the sunlight to give it a glowing blue light. The Dragon's Den is a large sleeping chamber and is rather elegant with silks and bejeweled cushions. There is a private entrance that the dragon has hidden with a secret door so it can come in and out of its chamber secretly. To the side of the den is the dragon's treasury, where it keeps anything too precious to display or any treasure that just doesn't fit the aesthetic or overall hoard. I really love that they keep things that would clash with the other hoard. This is still valuable and I know that, but I don't really want people to know that I have it because it just isn't pretty. So I'm going to hide it under here. Not because it's too powerful, just because it's ugly.
Yeah, there's a closet with all the I like it, but I'm not going to put it on display. They have like a storage on the back.
Yeah, it just doesn't fit with the vibe that I have going right now. And then for additional layer actions, they have 2. The Misleading Mirage until initiative count 20 on the next round. At each intersection or branching passage in the layer, a creature other than the dragon has a 50% chance of going in a different direction from the direction it intends. So they really burrow out a lot of different areas, so it would be very easy to get lost in a blue dragon's lair. And then Sudden Sinkhole, the dragon chooses a point on the ground that it can see within 120 feet of it. A 5-foot radius, 20-foot deep pit forms centered at that point. A creature on the ground above where the pit formed must make a DC 15 dexterity saving throw. On a failed save, it falls to the bottom, taking 2d6 bludgeoning. And if it succeeds, it moves to the nearest unoccupied space. I think that really fits in with the they'll destroy parts of their lair to either mess with you, to get out, to bury their treasure so that you can't take it. They're very much not opposed to destroying it all for if it suits them. For regional effects, we have Blue Luster. Creatures that spend a year within 1 mile of the dragon's lair find blue objects fascinating and feel compelled to acquire them at every opportunity. Mirage terrain. The area immediately surrounding the lair appears to be a lush oasis. A creature carefully examining the illusion can attempt a DC 15 intelligence investigation check to disbelieve it. A creature who disbelieves the illusion sees it as a vague image superimposed on the underlying terrain. And Sandstorm, a sandstorm blows constantly within 1 mile of the dragon's lair. And then for the treasure, blue dragons have a very high standard to what they allow in their hoards and will reject even powerful items if they don't fit their standards. Whether it's the looks of the item or a specific period, it's best to know what the dragon likes before attempting to offer it anything. And the two that I've picked are a glass spell that creates the sound of rainstorms and thunder for 1 hour when struck, and a blue silk fan painted with ground gems that creates a briny breeze when hung from the ceiling.
That's good and flavorful. I like that.
Yeah, they don't really do much, but I feel like they really just show off the elaborateness of what they like.
The opulence of a blue dragon.
Yes, so, it's painted with ground gems, not just regular paint or it's got to be the best
they like
you can find.
Is the point.
Yeah.
So let's roll initiative.
Yeah. 18.
16.
6.
All right. So Terry, what's your favorite piece of inspiration for the blue dragons?
Oh, look, I have to go back to the maps here. I really love the way that the inspiration given for the maps is it aligns perfectly with how a blue dragon would operate tactically. When you have this web network of narrow passages like this, your party is left with two options if it gets into combat with a blue dragon, especially if the movement phase doesn't cover all of this tunnel. Either we all die together from this line breath weapon in the same tunnel, or we split the party. That's it. And none of our tactics are based around splitting the party because we encourage each other to never do this, as does the DM. And now it relies on success from that option only. I love that because you are constantly on the back foot. The blue dragon is in constant control of the battle as it would want to be, as it's trained itself to be over hundreds of years. And, it's this, even just the passageways alone just sparks inspiration on other ways in which you can manipulate the positioning of the players.
Yeah. Yes. Just everything. Yes. On that. I got to say, I always kind of suspected, just based on their physical nature and the giant protrusion out of their nose. But there's a lot of little bits and pieces throughout the blue dragon section that leads you to think that they are the horniest of dragons as well. So I'm all over that. And it's not like mouth breathing pervert horny. It's just like, it's springtime and the nearby other dragons are going to just be getting Valentine's gifts from me because it's that time. So we're gonna wine and dine. They don't bother with Tinder. They want to sit down with somebody they know and really get to know them and have a connection.
I think that speaks to a sense of tradition, which I think a very military type dragon would have. This is the way things are done. It's expected behavior that we do it this way.
Yeah, it also gives me the idea that he would absolutely, he or she would absolutely invite another dragon in for dinner and a meeting just to be pleasant and cordial. And then at the end of the night, you can fly away. We don't have to fight. Let's just stay in contact. We may have to rely on each other sometime in the future. It's good to have friends, but don't let your territory encroach upon mine.
Right.
It's like he accepts foreign dignitaries and sometimes bangs them. Anyway, follow that up. Good luck.
I I like that they're like so tactically driven in certain areas, but then so like, I like this because it's pretty and I don't need it to be the most powerful thing, but I like the way it looks. So that's what I want.
Yeah.
But like in other areas, they're so like smart about stuff and tactically driven. And I'm going to do this because it's going to lead me to this. But then they just like it because it's blue.
Yeah, this blue dragons like blue, white dragons like white shit is getting a little old for me, but I mean, it is what it is. We don't have to overly complicate our D&D games. Are these the right spells, do you think, for these dragons, Terry?
I think so. Yeah, and what I like about these spells is they are spells that I wouldn't typically go to right away. In fact, some of these spells I would even just immediately disregard without even thinking about how I'm going to use them. But because they're suggested here, you think about it naturally, you think about it more and you realize how effective they could be. I'm all over that destroy water. I'd be destroying the water sources for days for these players. Good luck. That's the puzzle. It's not the blue dragon. It's the fact that you're going to die through thirst. What the hell's that called? I've lost that word.
Thirst?
What's it called when you die from?
Oh, dehydration?
Dehydration. I must be dehydrated now. Yeah. I think I said water starving. You die from water starving.
Water starving.
But yes, I think the spells are amazing. And then just really get them second guessing themselves with that major image as well.
The other thing that I would add, just it's good for tactics. It makes sense for their environments and their layers and stuff. Well, you could probably say this for red dragons too. Mold Earth would be a great addition to their spell list.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I hadn't seen Arcane Eye yet, so I had to look up what that one was. And that one's like an actual eye follows something around.
Yeah.
Is what it sounds like. So whereas the other ones are more like sneaky about their spying on you, this one's like, I don't care if you know that I'm spying on you.
Yeah, I really like the idea too. I've seen it actually played a couple of different ways, where one was a legitimate, like it looked like an eye got plucked out of an eye socket and is just floating in the air, following you around. But then also there was one where it was just like a floating, shimmering sigil almost of a, like, you know, the old Egyptian hieroglyph of just the eye, but it's just following the party around as well, which is magical and sparkly and neat. And I like that as well. How do you feel about the new layer details and regional effects, Terry?
I particularly love the details to the layer because it points out areas for the DM to focus on where if things change, the blue dragon will notice.
Yeah.
You know, the blue dragon being that kind of military type that it is kind of the same with any sort of uniform service. My girlfriend fucking hates it anytime, like military people or something come on TV, because within 3 seconds, I will point out 6 things that are wrong on that uniform and why it's inaccurate. I can also spot when it's a group of actors as extras or they've used real soldiers in this situation. I can see immediately. The same with any kind of uniform service, right? Everyone can do that with their own sort of profession. And I think it would be the case with things like the horde display, like in the lair. If you change anything, that blue dragon, I think, is going to notice. And these lair features point out the areas that the DM should be aware of that the players may interact with and change something.
Now you're making me think that they're like Captain Holt, right?
Yeah.
Very specific and also one of the episodes where they move his podium a half an inch to the left and he thinks it's the funniest thing in the world and he notices it immediately. Yeah, right.
And it's not. But the same thing is like if you stole the uniforms from the minions, well, you don't know how to wear that properly. Like he will immediately know that your flash is on the wrong arm, your buttons are not lined up with your belt, that you are telling him what to do, even though you're the higher rank than him. Like all of this stuff would just make great for social encounters that are going to build up to combat encounters, most likely.
I have to say that I think the most interesting thing for me when it comes to the layers is how they use their lightning breasts. I just feel like it's inspired me for my campaigns moving forward.
Thunderstorm Jubblies.
All of Adam's dragons are going to get breast weapons now.
40-foot cones, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Peps, what's your favorite thing about layer actions and regional effects?
Yeah, I like how much time they put into their layers. Like they make them look so elaborate, but then they will also just burn it to the ground if they need to, and then they'll start over. I think they get joy out of making it look so elaborate, so they're okay if they have to destroy it, because then they just get to make it again. And they get to change it, you know?
They're one of those people that's just like bored on a Saturday, so they're going to redo their living room.
Yeah, they just tear it all down. We got to start over. This isn't it anymore. I've got to, this is the new style for this season.
Would you like to pimp the shit, Peps?
Pimp the shit. So you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at It's a Mimic, and on Reddit at r/It's a Mimic. You can send us emails at info@itsamimic.com. Send in your mailbag questions there. We also appreciate positive reviews, sharing on social media, and word of mouth. And you guys got to send in more mailbag questions, because I'm not allowed to anymore.
All right. So that brings us to what was the most powerful dragon, which has now been eclipsed by another one now. But let's get into red dragons. Fizban says, you might think a red dragon's fire would burn away any hygienic improprieties and leave the dragon's breath smelling fresh as spring flowers, but you'd be wrong. And that's fun. That's flavorful. I can't assume that it smells good. Like, it's just always warm breath. All of the, I bet it's stanky. When we get into the red dragon personality traits, I mean, at this point, everybody knows. I don't feel like I need to go into this too much. They're big, they're bad, they're smartest, they're the toughest, they're the meanest, they know it, and the ego is out of control. So we get things clearly like, the worship of smaller creatures pleases me, though their weakness is pathetic. How can they do other than adore me? Yeah, that's on the nose for Red Dragon. When it comes to ideals, they've got, I mean, a bunch of them are listed here, and they've all got the little titles to them, right? Like, it's one word. Like, the first one is cruelty, and then it explains what that means. And then at the end, it gives you in brackets the alignment that it would line up with. But like cruelty, might, greed, respect, no limits, and responsibility. Yeah. If you're looking to get a really quick snapshot of what a dragon's overall personality is, I would just go looking at these 6 words that are listed in Fizbans. You're going to pick it up pretty fucking quick. And then, one of them will be their specific thing that, outshines everything else. But they all very much feel these ways. So when it comes to spellcasting, we get a lot of options here. The young red dragon gets Bane, Heat Metal, Hypnotic Pattern, and Suggestion. An adult gets Dominate Person on top of that. And an ancient gets Power Word Stun. Mm-hmm. That brings us to the adventure hooks that they give us. The one that really jumped out to me is a little on the nose, but it's clearly a thing you can build a campaign around. Evil cultists plan to meet with a red dragon and persuade it to become a Dracolich. It's all set up for you right there in the monster manual. You can do this. I love red dragons because they're powerful. They're also relatively simple, and everybody knows what they're getting into, which is why I was kind of inspired by the connected creatures, because you get things like a band of kobolds was driven out of its warren by a red dragon wormling. They now raid to survive and to gather offerings to propitiate. What is that word? Propitiate. I gotta look that up. That sounds like Dan made that up. Propitiate. Dear Googlebox, win or regain the favor of a god, spirit, or person by doing something that pleases them. Okay. So they're gathering offerings to propitiate the winged god. So yeah, that's on the nose. That's good. But we also get fun things like ogres and ettins, cowed by a young red dragon, wander the foothills near the dragon's lair, helping them drive away intruders. Again, I do like dragons and giant kin lining up, because traditionally they super freaking don't. An adult red dragon rules over a hidden valley filled with dinosaurs. That just makes the 10-year-old Adam very happy. Dragons and dinos. So the last one is the Ancient Red Dragon Connections, which is a Balor demon hopes an Ancient Red Dragon's Dragon Sight, which is the multi-dimensional ability to sense other versions of itself, can help the demon coordinate a multi-dimensional play for power in the abyss. I don't often think about demons and dragons teaming up, but shit, why not, right? When it comes to the layer features, I mean, you know what you're getting into. It's dragons, specifically volcanoes, but I mean, you can just rely on dragons if you'd like. In previous editions, there were dragons that liked stony, rocky, mountainous places that weren't red dragons, but it's kind of what we get at this point. And as much as I like that, I mean, there's nothing more classic than going into a volcano lair to fight a red dragon. And it mentions a couple little details, like servants like to keep the place clean, watch out for intruders. Some minions will worship a dragon and serve willingly, and we will have a dragon cult episode where we kind of get into that shit. Red dragons are perfect for that. But then you look at the lair itself, and there's a pillared hall, which sure, of course there is. There's a hoard room, which sure, of course there is. And then there's just the caldera, which is, of course, the mouth of the volcano with the lava pool in the bottom there. And it just seems small. It just seems tiny comparatively. When I'm looking at it, I'm looking at the passages here. They're all 5 feet wide, 8 feet at the most. This is an ancient red dragon lair. How is it getting into its sleeping quarters? I just think it's bizarre and stupid how the openings are just 5 feet wide for an ancient red dragon, right? Like it needs to be bigger. The layers just need to be bigger. I get so frustrated. Anyway, when it comes to additional layer actions, you get noxious smoke, which is a 20-foot radius sphere of dark smoke. The dragon conjures at any point it can see within 120 feet of it, which is fun because, I mean, the volcano smoking makes a lot of sense. Any creature other than the dragon that starts its turn in the cloud or enters it for the first time on its turn has to do a con save or be poisoned, which makes sense. And then we also get searing heat, which is a 15-foot radius sphere centered on a point the dragon can see, again, within 120 feet of it. And then again, it's a con save, taking 3d6 fire or half as much on a success. This is kind of what I expect out of a red dragon lair. It's not super inspired for me, but it's on brand. Get it? Brand? Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So then there's regional effects, which is the desertification, which is desertification, which means that precipitation is almost non-existent within 6 miles of the dragon's lair. So everything is just parched and cracked and dry and gross. There's also fiery senses. This is probably my favorite. The dragon can hear up to 30 feet through any open flame within a mile of its lair. And then there's ominous flames, which means that any open flames within 6 miles are tinged dark red. They hiss and crackle constantly, and they throw off embers and showers of sparks. Again, red dragons, when it comes to their treasures, they love gold, they love precious metals, but gold is by far the best. They get excited by like the glint of it, the gleam of it, the smell of it, the sound of it tinkling, and just everything gold. And of course, rubies and red fiery gemstones and what you expect out of a red dragon. But they do give us some cool art objects, like the blackened skull of a young dragon that has been etched with designs and decorated with gems, or the statue of a red dragon with gemstones for eyes. A lot of our really traditional dragon treasure stuff is present when it comes to red dragons, but I like the idea of it being singed and blackened and fire tinged. You know what I mean? So let's grab dice and discuss red dragons.
8.
I got a 15.
9.
All right, so that's me first. My favorite piece of new inspiration about these dragons, I mean, a lot of it just felt really on the nose for me. But my favorite new piece of information is definitely the idea that they would have a hidden valley filled with dinosaurs. I don't know why. That's just my favorite thing. They want the biggest, bestest, most toughest beasts out there. Then they're mine. This is my little menagerie. And these are my pets almost. And I think that's a red dragon with a T-Rex for a pet is just fun.
I think just that side quest, 2, 3, 4 sessions of let's just play the Lost World for a little bit.
Yeah.
Off we go. Dive in.
Yeah, for red dragons, it really is just mostly you know what you're going to get. Like there's not a ton of newly inspiring things for me. But red dragons are probably my least favorite dragon. So
Really? Red dragon's your least favorite?
Yeah.
They
don't do it for me.
No, they're powerful, but they're on the nose, and they're not subtle, and they're what you expect.
Yeah.
Right.
But I do like the multi-dimensional stuff that they've added, which you can use on any of them, but they really lead into it, I think, with the red dragon specifically.
Yeah.
And that can add quite a bit to your campaign and introducing different worlds. And even in our current campaign, we have went on other missions, and then we are now entering multi-dimensional stuff and seeing characters that we used to play, but the opposite version of them enter our campaign as NPCs. So now, like, my character that was evil and I loved her is now good, and it makes me so mad. But it's not the version of her. It's like the multi-dimensional version of her. And it really is adding to the campaign. So I think playing around with that with your red dragons can add a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, it's these the regional effects, because they are really on the nose and to be expected. But that's actually what I like about red dragons. You would be disappointed if a red dragon was relying on the blue dragon style tactics to get you, or if they were sneaking around stealth kills like the white dragon, or trying to stab you in the back like the green dragon. You'd be like, okay, I thought you're supposed to be here by divine right. This kind of feels like you're relying on other things to get the job done. But that's why I like these regional effects, because the idea that the dragon can hear up to 30 feet through any open flame, I think makes sense, that they would just be sat in their volcano just listening to what's going to happen. So as you're planning the night before around the campfire, or the human fighter that relies on the torch to get through the tunnels as he's going, hey, rogue, you sneak over there and I'll do this. I think it fits because you can use it alongside the ominous flames to telegraph this, that somebody may be listening. Like every time they badmouth the red dragon, or every time they say something that might frustrate the red dragon, the flames begin to like kick up sparks and go like dark red. It's kind of like, hey, that's a response to something you said. Think about it, players. There's your clue. So I really like the regional effects.
When it comes to the spells for the red dragons, I mean, it's on the nose. It makes perfect sense that this would be what they get. Heat metal makes sense. Suggestion, bane, hypnotic pattern is an interesting choice. But I really like power word stun.
Yeah.
Peps, how do you feel about their spell list?
I thought it was interesting that they got so many compared to the other dragons.
Well, I mean, you can tell how powerful they are because the spell save DC for a young red dragon is 16, which is what an ancient white dragon's spell save DC is. So the power scale is real, guys. Size matters.
Size matters. I actually don't know what power.
For an above average, slightly above average worm. There's one around here.
Yeah, it's just a little bit girthier, I think, than the white dragon.
Slightly above average, as long as it's not cold. Is there a section there?
As long as he's not getting out of the pool of lava. Yeah.
Shrinkage.
I don't actually know what power word stun does. I've never used that spell.
Oh, it's a 9th level spell. It's way up there. And the idea here is that is it 9th or 8th level? Power word kill is 9th level. The idea is that they say one word, and I don't think there's a save. You just are stunned.
8th level.
Oh yeah, you looked it up. Yeah, so it's 8th level, so it's super rare to run into. But what's the? I think that there's power word kill. You have to have. And so just looking up, if the target has 150 hit points or fewer, it is stunned. It has to make a con save at the end of each of its turns. On a successful save, the stunning effect ends. So powerful and good, especially if they're trying to run through the lava.
Yeah.
What I like about these spells is they all seem to be built around this idea of belittling the player characters and showing demonstrating the dominance of the red dragon. When you cast Bane, it means that they are very unlikely to even be able to hit the dragon. Heat metal, they can't even use their tools and their weapons that they came with. Suggestion means that they're going to be doubting themselves. Hypnotic pattern for that confusion. I like all of this because it just gives that sense that the red dragon can just sit there and be powerful by divine grace, and you useless beings that have approached me can't even do your own jobs effectively. That's what I like about these spells.
He's mocking them, right? This verbal component for each of these is mocking these mere mortals, right? When it comes to the new layer details and regional effects, I mean, the standout for me is being able to hear through flame. That's just freaking awesome. I do like the layer effect where you can take damage if it's just too warm. But honestly, I'm going to make everybody do con saves fairly regularly anyway, just because they need to not get exhaustion from being in a fucking volcano.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about it, Peps?
Yeah, I think the hearing through flames was probably my favorite also. I also like the one where just the flames are like darker in the area. And I like those sort of subtle details that you're not sure if your party will pick up on or not right away, that you can just sort of throw at them. And then at the end be like, these things were here all along. It just subtly gets more and more ominous that something's not right and see how many of them you got to throw at them before they realize.
In character as the Red Dragon, you mock them for not picking up on the clues.
Right.
Yeah.
Terry, how do you feel about it?
I love these layer details because it speaks to what I was just talking about. Okay, let's just look at the map for a second. So I know it's kind of very obvious. There's pillared halls and the kind of the tunnels and the areas around. But then the caldera, where the dragon assumably is going to sit on that big rock pile there in the middle of the lava pool. That's where I assume the red dragon is. But if you add all of these layer details around, such as the noxious smoke, which make it incredibly difficult to move through the tunnels because you're being poisoned, the searing heat for the reasons that Adam just mentioned, put together all of those layer actions and this dragon spells that we just talked about, it all just adds to this idea that you quickly become useless. Fatigue makes cowards of us all. And this dragon, he or she sits there and with this kind of a presence of, hey, I am here. I'm sat on a big pile of rocks in the middle of a volcano. You know where I am, and you can't even get to me. You're so useless. And the whole environment is just built around this idea of just making people that approach this dragon just seem useless and completely inadequate.
All right, so that's Red Dragons, and that's all of the chromatics, and yet we have one new interesting capstone above it all, the Chromatic Great Wyrm.
So the Chromatic Great Wyrm. So the Chromatic Great Wyrm is this idea that the most ancient chromatic dragons who have survived over 1,000 years, 1,200 years or so of mortal life, and they've acquired enough of their hoard, which would now be worth millions of gold pieces, can achieve this form of apotheosis, which reaching a level of power approaching that of Tiamat herself. So as it says in the book, and I won't quote it word for word, but the competitive avarice of dragonkind and the interference of adventurers prevent most dragons from attaining this level of power. However, a chromatic dragon who has been able to outwit its rivals or overcome the kind of the mightiest of other dragons and all of the potential thieves that would have visited it over the millennia would be able to ascend to this new level of power. And it's created by destroying their own echoes around the other planes and consolidating that power into that one being. It's like Highlander or the Jet Li movie One, that same sort of idea. So in both size and power, a Chromatic Great Wyrm exceeds that of even the most ancient of dragons. And the energy of their breath weapons courses over their bodies. It glows underneath their scales, and the elemental forces that they wield kind of rage around them when they exert their wrath. So visibly, they certainly demonstrate much more power than even that of their ancient dragon counterparts. They no longer need to eat or drink, as their hordes are so vast that they magically sustain them somehow, and their power can raise a city to the ground, and it can destroy the buildings and the defenders alike. Now let's take a look at the stat block here. We're gonna see some noticeable changes, and some things are going to be buffed. So a Chromatic Great Wyrm is still a gargantuan dragon, still chromatic, and still typically chaotic evil. They have a real high armor class of 22. Their hit points are 26 D20 plus 260. They have a standard speed of 60 feet, burrowing of 60 feet, and they can fly 120 feet, and they can swim for 60 feet. Their stats themselves are much beefier. Their lowest stat is dexterity of 14, but I mean the next one after that is intelligence, over 20, and then their two highest stats being that of strength and constitution, both 30 each. So for saving throws, they get dexterity, constitution, wisdom, and charisma. For skills, they have intimidation, perception, and stealth. Damage immunities will be, this is not completely clear, actually. Well, I guess it depends on what chromatic dragon they'll come from, whether it be acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison, whether it be which color they come from. For conditioned immunities, charmed, frightened, poison, okay, fine. Senses, they get true sight and passive perception of 31. With a CR, that's a challenge rating of 27.
Hey, this is Adam in the editing studio again. Apparently the file got corrupted for a moment there. You could kind of make out Terry's voice, but it was very robotic and annoying to listen to, and I won't subject you to that. So I will just fill in the blank, and then we can jump right back into it. He was talking about this new ability that they have called the Chromatic Awakening. It recharges after a short or a long rest, and essentially what it says is that if it's reduced to 0 hit points, its current hit point total instead resets to 425, at which point it recharges its breath weapon, it regains all of its legendary action uses, and additionally it can now use the options in the mythic actions section. It can do this for 1 hour, so like it wakes up and just gets to like super rage, get extra cool legendary actions beyond the regular legendary actions. I think that's it. I think I covered everything that Terry said without his flourish that Terry has. So let me jump back into it then.
And I'll touch on the legendary resistances here. So if the Great Wyrm fails a saving throw 4 times per day now, it can choose to succeed instead. It has an unusual nature, which means that it doesn't require food or drink, as we touched on. For the actions, still has multi-attack, bite, claw, tail attacks as always. Still has a breath weapon, though, of course, this will be much more powerful now. The DC is 26 for a dex saving throw against this breath weapon. On a failed save, it will be 12d12 damage of the type determined by the Great Wyrm's kind. So it's going to be acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison. The legendary actions, as typical of legendary dragons, you can do an attack or you can do a wing attack. Well, you can now also use an ability called Arcane Spear. It costs 3 actions. The Great Wyrm essentially creates 4 magical spears of force energy, and each spear hits a creature of the Great Wyrm's choice it can see within 120 feet of it, and it will deal 1d8 plus 8 force damage to its target and then disappears. We also have mythic actions, which we touched on a moment ago. So if the Great Wyrm's Chromatic Awakening trait has been activated in the last hour, it can use the options below as legendary actions. It can perform a bite attack. Great. There's another one, though. Chromatic Flare. This costs 2 actions. The Great Wyrm flares with elemental energy. Each creature within a 60-foot radius sphere centered on the Great Wyrm must succeed on a DC 26 dex save or take 5d8 damage of the type determined by the Great Wyrm's kind. So those are the mythic actions and everything to be covered within the stat block. Adam, DM questions, or would you like me to cover anything else for Great Wyrm?
No, sorry, I was talking, but I was muted.
Okay.
So, do you guys think... All right, let's roll initiative.
Sure. 4.
I also got a 4.
I got a 2.
All right, Terry, roll off.
2.
What'd you get?
2.
I got a 10. All right, so first of all, is this worthy? Is this the capstone that we were looking for Chromatic Dragons? For me, yeah, this kicks ass. Challenge rating 27. Yeah, this kicks ass. I'm glad that it is not as powerful as Tiamat, but it is close.
Yes, I do feel that it's a worthy capstone. However, it started to feel very video game-like. I feel like this is a Final Fantasy boss. To take it down to 0 hit points is a quick 30-second cutscene. It gets beefier, loads of green smoke comes out of places, and then all of a sudden it's just a bigger version of itself. We're playing Digimon at this point. So as long as your players are okay with that kind of game, then sure.
I think as long as you let them know ahead of time.
Yeah.
If you're going to fight a CR 27, keep in mind that your party's level 20, right? Like you're outclassed at this point. They've got to do research. They got to gather information. They should know that this is a potential threat. So,
right. Otherwise, it's going to seem like you're making it up.
Yeah.
Like you're like, what are these mythic actions? That sounds very made up.
That sounds like you made that up. You got to have the book open. Like, I swear.
Yeah, I also feel like the best way to do this with a red dragon, for example, would have it then plummet down into the lava. You shoot it, it looks really wounded, it plummets down, and then suddenly the volcano starts to rumble to explode. And
Yeah.
as you know, every skill challenge, get out of the volcano in time. And as you're sitting there watching it erupt, the red dragon bursts forth from it again. Like there's ways to make it cinematic and fun and cool.
Right.
And I would lean on the environment to kind of imbue it, right?
Right. Raise the lava as well. So now the map has changed.
Exactly.
For example, yeah.
Yeah. So you don't just stumble upon one of these, you like see it happen.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how I feel about the generic stat block for all chromatics. Like, I know that it does differentiate, but for the damage immunities and the breath weapon. But it'd be cool if the things like Arcane Spear and stuff was, I don't know, directly related to the kind of damage that, I don't know. Like, how do you feel about it, Terry?
Yeah, I mean, there must be a reason that they went force damage. Maybe like they're just pulling it straight from the weave or something like that. But yeah, you think that they would kind of align it around the damage type of the dragon itself, especially because everything else is built around that. I don't mind the generic stat block for all chromatics kind of being incorporated into this because it does make the DM's job easier. It's a little bit easier to get on board with for the players because it's kind of just an extension of what they already know. And these new abilities of Arcane Spear and Chromatic Flare, I don't mind these because they add a new level of stress. You know, when this happens, the party is already going to be hanging on by a thread. You know, that 6th round in combat where their hit points are down, they're running out of spell slots. This is their last ditch attempt. It's heal myself or use this big spell, and they'll use the big spell to get the hit points down to 0. And then when this the Chromatic Awakening happens and these new abilities come into place, it's going to be so stressful. This is where, again, I feel like players are going to be arguing amongst themselves. They've never been this deep into the weeds before. You know, what happens after you're already at the red limit? We don't know what we can do after this. So it's a new level of stress. I think it heightens everything.
Peps?
Yeah, I would, if I was running one of these, I would add, maybe I would, change some of the legendary actions or add in some from whatever type I was doing to give it a little bit more flavor and just sort of bump it up or, homebrew that. I think this book is very good at giving you a base for, even in like other sections, a base of these are general things you can do, and then pick your dragon and add to that your flavor in. So I would homebrew a little bit more flavor into some of those.
Yeah, I gotta say, I love the chromatic flare though. That's the kind of shit that I've wanted from day one.
Yeah.
What's one piece of inspiration that you have about combat encounters with a Great Wyrm? For me, honestly, I'm going to flaunt this. First of all, the size. I know it's gargantuan and so is an ancient, but up the damn size to the point where it blots out the freaking sun. This is a biblical level monster that we are talking about here. This shit is out of Revelations, and it needs to feel that way. And so again, this is not a random encounter. This is, I don't want to use a Tarask as the final thing for the campaign, so we're going to do this because it's been a dragon campaign. You need to feel it, and it needs to be scary. So yeah, my big thing about the combat encounter here is it needs to be in your face. I think it lands because it's not scared, and it gets in your party's face, and they're smart enough to go for the kill. They will kill the squishy one first, or the biggest, scariest one first, depending on how egotistical they are, right? But they're going to go for the kill on this. That bard is getting flung into the lava, right? It is going to use its... So, okay, so there's the other thing. There's no spells. Are we just keeping the spells from the ancient dragon then?
I think so. I don't think you're going to lose them. It's not clear, rules as written, I see, but I wouldn't remove the spells.
What's one of your combat inspirations, Terry?
I think the idea that this Chromatic Great Wyrm must have traveled all of the planes to achieve this level of supremacy now means I think we can lean on that in the combat encounter. I think we could pull the players into these different planes, constantly stress them with new environments all the time that they're getting sucked into. I think this battle could actually go on for hours in in player time, right? As we're around the table, as you kind of are moved between different planes, perhaps there'll be like a lull in the battle where you may get an opportunity to try and heal. You can bring in NPCs that you've met in different planes. This is going to be towards the end of your campaign now. You can even, what I like to do sometimes is let the players play the NPCs in the battle so they can take a break from their other players and really drag this out over a long period of time where it feels like a big combined effort across a lot of planes will give this huge, big kind of biblical revelations type feeling. I don't think this is an encounter that should be over in a single hour.
Peps?
Yeah, I would definitely pull it in PCs and people, because like you said, you're a level 20 by now. So you have spent so much time gaining allies, helping kingdoms, solving the problems of the world. And then this is like the big thing at the end. As a player, I would want to pull on every connection, pull every favor I've spent the last year or two playing this campaign making to come and help fight this thing. This is your last stand, your all-out battle. Use everything you've got.
And keeping in mind, what's the average hit points of an NPC? These guys have a 300-foot cone, DC 26 dex save for 12d12 damage. You're going to wipe out a third of their beloved NPCs they spent all campaign doing. It is going to feel epic when you just hit them with that and fly the fuck away.
Yeah. I love it. And then you can the idea that you can break this up into smaller battles, right? You can have the wyverns will still be above the volcano, and maybe your Aarakocra friends are having to deal with some sort of aerial battle with them. We'll get to that next session. We'll pause here. We'll see how that's going to affect this. This can be done on such a huge scale. This will be memorable for players, I think.
And remember, the bigger the dragon, the bigger the horde and the multiple layers, right? So you could be really chasing it around for a while. Which is just awesome. So what's one piece of inspiration you have about exploration encounters? For me, it is going to be absolutely the fact that you should be ramping up the layer to the nth degree. If it is a volcano for an ancient dragon, it is a perpetually erupting volcano for a red great wyrm, right? It can't just be cold for a white one, right? Or the forest is deep. It has to be the most overgrown super forest where every tree is bigger than a skyscraper, right? Like I'm really ramping up that environment so that you feel small and insignificant in this presence. Terry?
I think the feel the threat in the regional effects and in the region around. As you're kind of dipping in and out of this battle or moving to different planes or bringing in different NPCs, if the heat in the region has increased, maybe the nobles in the area are concerned that perhaps the dragon is winning this battle 6 miles away somewhere, or if the crops start to die, or if the water level starts to rise, it might suggest something else. So for the explorative elements of it, I think that there should be signs of what is happening based on how it affects the region for miles around.
I think with exploration, you could do so many sessions up to this, exploring the different multiverses, just chasing this dragon, killing its echoes, and you get there too late at every one of them until it leads up to this. But your party just jumping portals to different places and seeing all the different worlds and echoes that are out there. You could explore so much more than just your little corner of the world and this part of the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah, and not even just chasing it, right? Like you might go into a realm where the echo finds you first and has decided that you have to die. And if I kill this echo, I'm just adding to the power of the other guy that he hasn't met yet. And so it's kind of rocking a hard place.
So what's one piece of inspiration you have about social encounters with the Great Wyrm? Honestly, there was that phrase right at the beginning of the book about when you want to role play a dragon, relax. These great wyrms are scared of nothing short of Tiamat herself. They are going to be scared of absolutely nothing. And that, I think, is by far the most important thing to remember in a social encounter. Even when they retreat, they're retreating to drag you deeper into their territory. everything is tactical. They're at no point do they feel like they're going to lose. Even when they drop to 0 hit points, they come back with a chromatic flare, right? Like they're still kicking, they're still fighting. It's still a problem, and they know they can do this shit because they're great worms. They know that, all right, now I got to dig deep and actually fight them. They should not be legitimately scared to the last 2 rounds of combat, and then they should flee, right? Which means, honestly, for a social encounter, boast and roast, I will say. Let them know that they are just total useless pieces of shit. They're never going to win this battle. Oh, wow, you hit me with disintegrate. That hurt my toe. What do you got? What else? Where are we going with this? Really, really plan out what you're going to say to fuck with them in initiative. Make the players feel scared in ways that the dragon won't.
Yeah, it's this idea that you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, right? If you know, the party will know at this point, if they are not getting a response from the dragon, from this Chromatic Great Wyrm, that whatever they're doing is not having an effect. So that's just a feeling of absolute hopelessness. So you either get absolute hopelessness because you're not getting a reaction from the Chromatic Great Wyrm, or you have crippling fear because you are getting a reaction from the Great Wyrm. And that must mean that if you've got to the point where you're getting a reaction from them, whatever that reaction is going to be is not going to be good. It's going to be the worst possible thing that you can imagine. So your 2 lines are, you either have absolute hopelessness or crippling fear. And that's it. That's all you can expect.
So depression or anxiety. There you go.
Yeah.
Pick your poison. You're getting them both.
I like you're not gonna say anything to this thing that's gonna matter, but I like the idea. Terry had mentioned the video game-esque of these things. You're gonna get that like big monologue, the like bad guy monologue from these guys right before they turn into this. And like, this is my plan. I've been doing it all along, and you guys have witnessed it all. Now sit back and witness this. And like, that's about, I think, all you're really going to be able to do with this is just sit and listen to what it has to say, because it does not care what you have to say.
The other thing that I think would be absolutely phenomenal is flipping that on its head after it does this chromatic awakening. So it does the big monologue, you fight, it drops to 0, it goes down, and then it comes back, and it does this big chromatic flare, and it stands directly in front of the wizard, who was the one that got the killing blow, narrows his eyes, and just looks into his soul for 2 rounds. Everyone else is attacking, and he doesn't flinch. And now he's going to do the crazy amounts of attacks, and that alone should have the wizard shaken in their slippers. The one final piece of inspiration that I have when it comes to a Chromatic Great Wyrm, and this is going to terrify your spellcasters in a unique way, is give your Great Wyrm 3 or 4 charges of counter spell. That alone would make a spellcasting difference between an ancient dragon and a Great Wyrm, is the ability to say, no, you don't. And if not counter spell, then of course dispel magic. So all those zones of safety and circles of protection and all that shit will just go away. Any final thoughts, guys, before we wrap this up? All right, then.
No final thought.
So
no, I think we've covered quite a lot there.
Yeah, we covered a lot.
Yeah, this was a long episode, but I mean, we did cover 6 dragons. So I guess that wraps us up for these updates on Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. But we're not done with dragons by a sight. So there are a lot of other dragons in D&D, and you should subscribe or follow and check back regularly to see what inspirations and insights we'll have for you in the future. The next time we circle back to dragons, we'll be giving metallic dragons the same treatment, so feel free to hold your breath until then. Get it? Yep, all right. Fuck. Anyway.
For your breasts.
Hold your lightning breasts. Incidentally, I Google searched it, and I just got a bunch of Final Fantasy 13 shit, and it was underwhelming and disappointing.
Oh, yeah. Lightning.
Yeah, that tracks, though.
Anyway, next week, Dan is going to return to the Forgotten Realms to give a better understanding about what else is in the world beyond the Sword Coast and even Toril. I think he's digging into the magic and the planes and the weave.
So thanks for listening to another episode of the It's a Mimic podcast. If you would like to support us, we have a donate button on our website, www.itsamimic.com, as well as a store for some awesome merch. We also rely on word of mouth to get news of the podcast out there to the community. So please pass the word to everyone you know that we are available on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, as well as most podcast apps. Thanks again for listening to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get.
This has been an It's a Mimic production. Inquiries, requests, and questions for our mailbags can be sent to info@itsamimic.com.
What is your power word stun word? If you had one word.
You have one word to utter. All right, let's roll initiative on this. I got a 7.
6.
What word do you use to stun people?
Oh, is it me first? Sorry, I didn't pay attention to the.
I didn't hear what you actually got.
I got 11.
Oh yeah, you're first.
Okay. Years ago, when I was when I was still in the army and I was doing riot control, I had this sergeant major who's when he was teaching us the techniques for riot control, it was give them fair warning. I think he said 3 times, and then kind of do your thing. And it was always get back, fuck you. It was Scottish. He was from Glasgow, and so that would be for me. Get back, fuck you. And that would be what I would do.
I worked in a haunted house for a while, and for a number of years, and I used to just scream from behind fake walls and, big, deep demon voices or scary, high-pitched cackling and stuff. But I found the most effective way to totally scare people was to just jump out in front of them when they weren't expecting you to do it and say something utterly and totally confusing, because they would be scared and then confused. So we were often trying out the most bizarre words to use. The 2 most effective ones I've noticed, when people are terrified and you are chasing them, saying peanut butter, peanut butter, peanut butter, peanut butter, legitimately bothers them. I don't know why, but peanut butter is a great way to confound and terrify people. However, spatula gets them to just stop everything and go, what? So I feel like that's probably the right answer for power word stun.
A spatula, that's your word?
Spatula.
Our word spatula.
Yeah. Perhaps what's yours?
Yeah, I like the idea of it just meaning nothing. But also my name Pepperina Sparklegem means nothing, so I might just yell Sparklegem. And nobody knows what that is, what I'm talking about. But
I love the idea of your power word stun or power word kill being your own name.
My own name, yeah. And they're gonna be like, what?
Just kicking the door open and being like, Edo!
And everybody stops.
Yeah.
You've arrived. That is rather dragony, isn't it? Just the best word is me, obviously.
Clearly. Yeah.
Clearly.
I'm coming. I'm just finding my page.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not coming. I'm arriving. I'm getting to it, is what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about.
You're almost there. Almost there.
Nearly. Oh, well done.
One moment, please.
Thanks for listening. Bye.